Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some of which I grew up with, and some of which are new to me. Today's game is one of the latter. This is Dandy by John Howard Palevich, one of those two, released through the Atari Program Exchange in 1983. Dandy is a really interesting game because it is the direct inspiration for Atari's arcade game Gauntlet. It was developed as sort of a project at MIT, if I remember correctly, and it was originally intended to be an adaptation of Dungeons and Dragons. The name Dandy comes from the phonetic pronunciation of D&D, and the original intention was to have 4 players on Atari computers and a 5th networked in with them as a dungeon master controlling things like the monsters and such like. That ended up being a bit too ambitious, unfortunately. So the original implementation of this still involved networking, but what was originally the Dungeon Master machine was just serving maps to the Atari, and this was eventually adapted into the form we've got here, which is a game that comes with a sample 26 level dungeon that can be played with between 1 to 4 people on a single Atari computer, 1 to 4 on the old Atari 400, which had 4 joystick ports, or just 2 on the later models, which only had 2 joystick ports. But it also came with a dungeon editor, which allowed you to create your own levels, save them to disk, and then start up this game and load your own levels in. So as it says on the screen, Dandy is a user-extendable real-time animated adventure game. So this is one of the earliest examples of a game that was designed from the outset to be moddable. There were quite a few examples of things like construction sets and level editors back in the Atari 8-bit era, but those often came out a little bit later than the original source material. But this is a game that was designed from the get-go to be moddable for people to create their own levels and share them with their friends. So I'm all on my tard at the moment, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to play by myself. But you'll get the idea of how this all works. So we will just begin from level A and see how far we get. So you move around in this sort of tile-based fashion. You can shoot in 8 directions. And there's these various monsters. So this is food here that we can use just by pressing our number key. And there's also potions you can get that are smart bombs that are used by pressing shift and the number key. Now the monsters in this aren't terribly complicated, so rather than having different types of monsters, they just cycle through different types. So the weakest ones are those sort of humanoid figures you can see there, and then it goes up to the round faces and then the square faces. So when you shoot one of the stronger ones, it just downgrades to the next monster. These hearts here, what happens when you die is you go into limbo, and if you're playing co-op with other people, if someone shoots one of these hearts, then it will bring you back from limbo and allow you to be resurrected. If you're playing by yourself though and you die, you are fucked. So you can probably already see how this influenced Gauntlet with its tile-based map, its 4-player capability, the fact there's locked doors with keys, there's food to collect, there's potions to use as smart bombs, there's treasure to find to get you points. It's very obvious that this is what would become Gauntlet. It's actually a bit of a shame I don't have other people to play with here, because one of the more interesting aspects of the game is the fact that you share a lot of the resources. If you look at the top of the screen, then there's space for the 4 player stuff there. So you have to kind of cooperate and discuss who's going to take what and who's going to be able to. Oh dear, I'm dead. That went poorly. All right, let's try that again while I'm talking. Yeah, so each player has their own health bar, their own stock of food, their own bombs, their own keys and such like. So if you're playing with more than one person, you've got to make sure that everyone gets their fair share, basically. Otherwise, someone is going to be left without food or without the ability to defend themselves with smart bombs or without any keys to open doors. Keys aren't a huge problem because the nature of these games means that you're going to be sticking together anyway, so you're unlikely to get lost and caught on the other side of a locked door from everyone else, but the other stuff is certainly relevant. I quite like the simple but elegant way of handling which player is which is just by putting a giant graphics 1 character number over the top of them. If it does the job, better to be clear than fancy. And so Gauntlet obviously built on this by having the different character classes, each of whom had various different strengths and weaknesses. There was also the melee combat aspect in Gauntlet as well. In this you can only shoot to defeat enemies. Right, I've got a potion there, so I should be able to go Shift and 1. There we go, blow them all up. Yeah, in Gauntlet, so you had the melee combat as well, so you could walk into things, and certain characters were better at that than others, so you didn't want the wizard to be engaging in melee combat, for example. But in this, everyone is all the same type of character. You're just crawling a dungeon, so. And so I can see this being a lot of fun in multiplayer. This will be a nice bit of competitiveness going on with the scoring up at the top, so you can see who's stealing all the treasure, which is where the arguments in this sort of game tend to go. Oh, I've got too much food. Don't have a key for that one. Not 100% sure what the food's actually for. Oh, it just heals you. There we are. So your maximum health is 90% for some reason. I guess because 100% would take up an additional character up at the top and potentially screw with the justification, but at least it doesn't have that awful counting down health that the arcade version, well, in fact every version of Gauntlet had. That was always... I never really liked that, particularly in the home ports, because especially the home ports of the arcade version, because it kind of made your progress sort of meaningless, because certainly in one of the ports where you had infinite credits, you could just keep pumping money into it, and basically you could just credit feed your way through the whole game. And if you weren't pumping money into it, you were basically losing health with every tick. And so there was basically a hard limit on how far you could get on a single credit as well. So although Gauntlet is fondly remembered, that is one of my least favourite aspects of it. It was one of the earliest examples of pay to win almost. But you know, the other cool things about that game certainly outweighed the annoyance of that. So where are we going? This way? This way. There's monsters down there. That means I haven't been there. So I'm sure I've seen some people out there comparing this to Rogue as well. The creator of it actually wasn't aware of Rogue at the time, although it was a sort of vague contemporary of it. So there was no influence from Rogue on this. The levels are pre-designed rather than randomly generated, although some of the monster placement is randomized each time. So yeah, this is not a roguelike. This is a Gauntlet-like, if you will, or more accurately, Gauntlet is a dandy-like. Either way, it's an interesting historical artifact, if nothing else, and pretty fun. So let's make our way through one more level, and then ooh, lots of keys. So the nice thing about this game is, its mechanics are pretty simple, as you can see, but the the flexibility you've got with... Oh dear, I'm dead. The flexibility you've got with the level editor and such like, and just sort of using those limited tools in a really creative way is what makes this game interesting. Let's just take a quick look at the dungeon editor and see just how accessible it might have been. So dungeon editor, press start, here we go. So what we do with this... Okay, so you type one of those characters at the top of the screen to draw a particular item. So if we want to draw a wall, we press the asterisk, and then we press fire to drop it down at the position of the cursor, like that. And then monsters, I believe... Oh, yeah, there we are. 1, 2, and 3. So 3 is the strong monsters, 2 is the middle strength monsters, and 1 is the basic monsters. O. Let's see what that does. O is a locked door. So I guess K will be a key. Yeah, there we go. U will be the stairs up to the previous level. D will be the stairs down. Plus, presumably, is the food. Yep. Dollar signs will be the treasure. What about S? What does that do? Oh, that's a potion. Or smart bomb. S for smart bomb. H for heart, obviously. A, monster generator, and presumably B. Yeah, there we are. A, B, and C are all monster generators. So the A ones pump out the basic zombies, the B ones pump out the round faces, and the C ones pump out the square faces. And so with all those tools, yeah, you can do what you like, basically. You can clear out the existing levels, make a real mess with them. Although it'd be good if there was a way to just empty the whole level. Apparently there is not a way to do that. But of course, what you can do is draw a knob. There we go. It's my dandy knob. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.